Okay, record to. Okay, I'm gonna go back to screen sharing then. Okay, can you all see my screen full screen?
Yes, now. Yes.
Okay.
Ooh. And Haley, when you shared your screen, did you do like optimize for video sharing or something? Because we have those two videos in the slides.
Um, I don't know. I think I'll just have to click on them.
Excellent. Yeah, let's do a test. And we will edit this recording to remove these first couple of minutes.
Yeah. Yeah, I should be able to just click play.
So let's do a test here.
Yep.
Wait, keep playing. I just want to hear the audio.
The House will come to order.
Are you all able to hear it?
Keep playing. It was like a little laggy for a second.
The Sergeant at Arms will close the doors of the House. Representative Bob Brooks of Westmoreland County has requested leave for the day. Representative Rosemary Brown of Monroe County has requested leave for the day.
Are you all hearing it? There's supposed to be music kind of in between Terzai talking.
I definitely don't hear music.
There's
Yeah.
music on the video. I don't know.
There's supposed to be Haley, try unsharing your screen, and then when you share your screen again, there's like two little check boxes that say something like optimize for video and audio or something like that.
Okay.
That's under share options on the
Yep,
right.
got it.
The hour of 1 p.m. having arrived, the House will come to order. That's working.
That's better on your, okay. Sounds good. Let me
Beautiful.
go back to the, oh, back. Okay, we should be right where we're supposed to be.
Okay, I'm gonna let everybody in. Here we go. Well done, everybody. And Nishmi, you're gonna take that opening section from Tammy.
Yep. Hi, everyone. Welcome, welcome. So glad you're here. This is the second segment of the PA Poor People's Campaign three-part course on nonviolent civil disobedience, nonviolent direct action. Glad you're all here tonight. Thank you for being with us. Welcome, welcome. Feel free to introduce yourself in the chat. You could share what organization you might be coming in with, where you're coming in from tonight. Thank you for being here.
Hi.
Hi, everyone. Welcome, welcome. This is the second segment of a three-part course held by the Pennsylvania Poor People's Campaign and National Call for Moral Revival on nonviolent direct action. Really glad you're here. Thank you for being here tonight. Feel free to introduce yourself in the chat. Thanks for those who are including your pronouns. Feel free to do that. You could even edit your name to include your pronouns if you want to. Hover over your name, click on more, and then rename, and then you can put in your pronouns. Welcome again, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started. Haley, if you could pull up the slides, please. Thank you so much.
Are they not already on the screen?
Oh, okay, perfect. Thank
Okay.
you.
Yep.
All right, so I'm Nijmi Zakia Zarinko. I'm coming into tonight from Clearfield County in the Central Appalachia region of Pennsylvania, former tri-chair of the Pennsylvania Poor People's Campaign. I'm also with Put People First PA and the Nonviolent Medicaid Army, and I'm on the coordinating committee of the Pennsylvania campaign. Really, really glad to be with you all tonight for this second session. And if we go to the next slide, I'll just be introducing what we are doing tonight. So raise your hand or put something in the chat if you joined us on Monday, May 19th for our first session on the theory and history of nonviolence. And even if you weren't able to join, that's okay. I know we shared out a recording, and if you didn't get a recording, let us know and we can get it to you. We had a great session. Awesome, awesome. Thank you everyone for putting things in the chat or yeah, putting up an emoji. So tonight is our second session. Tonight we're going to be getting more into the nitty-gritty of planning nonviolent direct action and carrying it out. We're going to be looking at a very specific case study tonight, and we're also going to talk about understanding the roles that are needed to carry out this kind of action, both arrestable and non-arrestable roles, and demystifying the process of the action and of arrest. So that's our topic for tonight. And then next Monday, we'll be really getting more into practice and planning and action. So that's kind of where we're going. Yeah, you can keep going. Thank you. And tonight, we're going to continue with our goals. This image you see here is actually an image from an arrest during our 40 days of action with the PA Poor People's Campaign that kicked off the reigniting of the Poor People's Campaign in 2018. 6 consecutive weeks of nonviolent direct action in 40 states across the country has been described by Bishop William Barber as the largest sustained nonviolent direct action in the history of the United States. So tonight, we want to demystify the arrest process and gain an understanding of what to expect and how to navigate the legal aspects of nonviolent direct action, understand nonviolence and define and explore why it's an effective strategic practice, build leadership, develop skills and comfort in nonviolent direct action, and prepare for leadership roles. Look at historical examples and real-world experiences and spiritual and mental preparation. And in general, we hope that this course will help you to, and tonight specifically, session goals will help you to define an action narrative that is part of a larger strategy and understand the mechanics, roles, and responsibilities within a nonviolent direct action. So one of the things that we're going to get into tonight has to do with just how you are thinking about how and why of taking action, right? And I think that by and large, our actions will be in the context of larger campaigns, right? They won't simply be sort of one-off kinds of tactical maneuvers. They'll be part of a larger arc. And so we think in these terms around why the action is needed, and we talk about sometimes this concept of points of intervention. And I think, those of us that have studied the labor movement or have been part of the labor movement know that historically a really powerful site for contesting the power structure is the point of production, right? It's like the shop floor, right? Where production is happening, where you have the ability to actually shut down or stop the gears of production in the capitalist economic system. So that has historically been a huge site, right, of struggle for workers and a site of leverage for working class people. But there's also many other points of intervention. I know I've been part of, and many people here have been part of movements for economic and environmental and climate justice. And one of the fights that's happening right now in this country that the Poor People's Campaign has been deeply connected to and committed to is the fight to protect Oak Flat, which is the sacred lands of the Apache stronghold out in Arizona. And that case recently got to all the way up to the Supreme Court. And unfortunately, the Supreme Court has declined to hear the case. And the majority opinion declined to hear the case. And it was two justices, actually, who dissented from that. Gorsuch and Clarence Thomas, interestingly enough, dissented from the majority opinion that declined to hear the case of the Apache stronghold, that are fighting to prevent Resolution Copper, a multinational mining company, from destroying their sacred lands at Oak Flat. And so there's been a lot of actions and activities around this point of destruction, right? This place where the mining company is trying to break ground, trying to start to wall things off. That would be considered the point of destruction, right? So that's another point of intervention, disrupting that process of Resolution Copper beginning to mine on the site. I know we have lots of other examples of that kind of thing. The point of consumption, right, is another one. So where we are consuming, this whole society is forced to be a society of consumers. And so there is an element of that. And that has also historically been used really well with boycotts. We think of the civil rights movement, really powerful, very highly organized boycotts. One of the case studies, or the primary case study we're going to look at tonight with March on Harrisburg, is around the point of decision, right? This is actions that take place in Harrisburg. We'll also see an example of that with an action that the Poor People's Campaign did around general assistance in the Senate chambers, right? The point of decision, where lawmakers are making laws and passing policies. This is another really important point. Point of opportunity describes, where you can find maybe a decision maker when they are at a fundraiser, right? When they're making a public appearance, where they're maybe not necessarily expecting to be encountered, but we sort of take that as a point of opportunity. That recently happened with State Senator Joe Pittman in Armstrong County, where some folks here confronted him around both the gift ban and also healthcare and Medicaid. And a point that I want to bring in that isn't often or as frequently talked about in points of intervention is the point of survival. And this is what we spoke about a lot in our first session when we talked about how in the course of the deindustrialization that took place in the 70s and 80s in this country that gave birth to the record amounts of homelessness that we now have experienced, that gave rise to unhoused people moving on what they needed to survive, which was to take over housing, and how the National Union of the Homeless gave leadership and a political orientation to this practice that was already happening at the point of survival. And that is nonviolent direct action, right? Taking over a house, even if it's vacant, right? Even if no one lives there, we know in this society is not legal. And so that is nonviolent direct action at the point of survival. And so, again, this is not always talked about in the sort of theorizing about nonviolent direct action, but I think it's increasingly important for us as a poor people's campaign and as poor and dispossessed people to understand this fighting at the point of survival for our basic rights. So this is going to, I think, have increasing importance over time as we move forward, and we want to make sure to highlight it. So these are some points of intervention. And we're always thinking about shifting the narrative. We have a saying in the Poor People's Campaign, change the narrative by changing the narrator. Nonviolent direct action forces the encounter, disrupts business as usual. And so we ask ourselves these questions as we're moving into thinking about planning nonviolent direct action in the course of a larger process, campaign. Who are we encountering to demand what, when, and where are we encountering them? And what are we doing to encounter and disrupt them? And again, the them is not always a specific person. I think the housing takeovers of the homeless union, for example, were a message to the entire society, right? They were a message to the entire public about the reality of survival in the United States and what, the courage to take our survival into our hands. So these are some points about defining the action narrative and points of intervention. And we can keep going. Yeah, so here are just a couple of examples of what I've been speaking about. We spoke about this last time too, the general assistance fight. We were camped out outside of Governor Wolf's house. We also did a banner drop inside of Senate chambers. And we'll be talking, I think that'll be an example we'll use a little bit more tonight as well. This is one example of the point of decision, right? The point of decision, the governor and the legislature. Keep going. And then another example from last week, the Lincoln Hospital takeover by the Young Lords in 1970. What would y'all consider this point of intervention to be, of this nonviolent direct action? You can put it in the chat. What would you consider this point of intervention to be? Yeah, Jeff, survival, exactly, right? This is about our survival. And so this hospital takeover was a message about the reality of being poor and dispossessed in the United States and not having our basic needs met. And as we know in the Poor People's Campaign, this is not a small marginal group of people. This is 140 million people who are poor or near poor. One paycheck, housing, healthcare, or climate emergency away from poverty. And we can keep going to this other example of just, again, hospital closures happening. And so actions and things that may arise around this question of our health, our life, right? Our survival. So these are all different kinds of points of intervention. And now we're going to get into our specific case study for tonight, which is looking at one or two of these points of intervention, and we'll be kind of focusing on those. And as I mentioned, there's many, many different points of intervention, and we want to kind of understand the broad scope of them, even as we look at this specific example. Michael?
You're here. Thank you, Nishme. I am Rabbi Michael Pollack with March on Harrisburg and the Poor People's Campaign, and I'm here to walk us through a specific action that's going to serve as a case study for tonight. It is as Nishme was just saying, it's a specific point of decision type of action, and it happened in the Pennsylvania State Capitol. This was back in 2019, this action. So we're going to watch the video first, and then I'm going to ask you some questions about it and talk more about it.
of 1 p.m. having arrived, the House will come to order. The Sergeant at Arms will close the doors of the House. Representative Bob Brooks of Westmoreland County has requested leave for the day. Representative Rosemary Brown of Monroe County has requested leave for the day. Representative Ben Sanchez of Montgomery County has requested leave for the day. Representative Jake Wheatley of Allegheny County has requested leave for the day. Representative Angel Cruz of Philadelphia County has requested leave for the week. Representative Margot Davidson. Without objection, the approval of the Journal of May 1st, 2019 will be postponed until Sergeant of Arms. We need to have the individuals removed. I think that goes without saying. Members, we will stand in recess until 1:30.
Okay, first question, please put your answer in the chat. What was the demand? What was the demand of that action? Pass the gift ban. Stop taking bribes. Boom. Clear demand, right? So we're going to go through some other parts of that action. I'm just going to give some broad strokes of what we just saw, and then we're going to zoom in on different features of it. But essentially, that was an action to get the Pennsylvania State Legislature to pass the gift ban, specifically the State House, and specifically that guy in the frame there, Speaker Mike Turzai, who was essentially running the House at that point. The action involved throwing money down from the House gallery. That's what you just saw. That was $500 in cash. All of it has disappeared, either into custody or apparently there was a high school volleyball team on the House floor that day that took about $85 or so home with them. And that action led to the Speaker of the House agreeing to pass the gift ban. It did advance through committee a couple months after that, and then he resigned abruptly, and COVID happened, and then he resigned abruptly. And that promise was null and void. And let's go to the next slide here and start diving into some specific areas of this action. So the escalation of tactics, right? So in forming an action narrative, you generally want to have an escalation of tactics. You want to start and kind of cover your bases and then kind of move up from there to nonviolent direct action. So the housing takeovers from week 1 that we looked at, remember it didn't start at all, I'm sorry, but at one point there were some protests after a long march from New England to Washington, D.C. Those protests led to a meeting. That meeting secured promises to fund housing, right? They were at the lobbying stage here, rallying and lobbying and marching. The agreement was thrown out. The Secretary of HUD broke that promise. And so then it moved into nonviolent direct action. It continued to escalate. Right, we're always trying to escalate with our tactics and until we win. And so that action that we saw with the gift ban, that was an escalation, right? We had already done everything on this staircase here as far as escalation of tactics, emails, letters, social media, phone calls, rallying, lobbying, marching, everything to lead us to nonviolent direct action. Also, this escalation of tactics staircase is not exhaustive. There's a lot more that could be on that staircase. There are many tactics that we employ, of course. Um, and yep, let's keep going here. Oh, I'm sorry. I think we skipped one. Let's go back one. Nope, my bad. My bad. Just a quick word here about leadership development as well. When we are doing the direct actions, another reason why we're doing them is because we need to develop our leaders through our actions, through planning the actions and carrying out the actions. We develop our own skills. We develop our own competence. We develop our own commitment to the movement. We develop our own connection with each other. We develop our own confidence and we develop our own ability to lead in the movement. And our own clarity about the system. And so we do actions to achieve our tangible, concrete goals and to win, and also to build the movement that we need in order to win bigger things. So action narrative here, we have to ask ourselves always, why is the action needed? Why are we doing this at all? Um, and let's keep going here. Oh, I'm sorry. I got out of order. That's on me, Haley. Leadership development. This is it. We have to develop our leadership as we do it. Let's keep going. So, who are you encountering and why, right? And it's not always a who. Sometimes it's a what. Sometimes it's a hospital. Sometimes it's a house. But oftentimes it's a who. And when you take a step back, there's always a who there. Whether it's the general public, whether it's the media, whether it's the point of decision right in front of you. Whoever it is, you have to ask yourself why. Why are you encountering them? And it's important to designate first your primary target and then your secondary target. For this action here, for this gift ban action, the primary target was Mike Turzai, the Speaker of the House. Secondary to him, we were going after everybody else in the building. We were going after them as a way for them to intervene, to rescue him, to bail him out, uh, facilitate to reconcile the conflict between us and him, to mediate it and solve it. And when you're encountering people, especially at the point of decision, it and really at any point of intervention, you really are changing the narrative by changing the narrator. And so you see in this picture here that Speaker Turzai, as we're encountering him for the first time that day, uh, and if you can see the person in the middle there, Selba has the megaphone and it's held back over their shoulder. And that's because the Speaker of the House reached for that megaphone and tried to take it right out of Selba's hands. And Selba said no, and put her right behind their head and continued to talk and didn't let him command that space, didn't let him just talk and talk and talk into a megaphone like politicians are used to. And that right there changed the narrative. It changed the narrator and changed the narrative, and it rocked him. It rocked him a good deal because when you don't let a politician speak, it kind of breaks their brain a little bit in a very productive way. Let's keep going. So as you're looking at who, um, learn as much as you can about them. Learn everything you can about who you're going after, or what you're going after, right? If you're doing a hospital takeover, you better damn well know the layout of the hospital. You better know everything you possibly can about it. If you're doing a point of decision encounter, right, you got to know everything you can about the person, about the human being in front of you. Who are they? Where are they from? What's their career? What's their volunteer background? What issues do they care about? Who are their biggest cash constituents? Who's given them campaign contributions, who are their PAC funders? Who are the lobbyists that they hang out with? How long have they been in office? How do they maintain and gain power? Who are their friends? Who are their enemies? Who do they listen to? Who do they ignore? Who can you flip? if you remember from last week, one of the goals of nonviolent direct actions is to polarize. It's to knock everybody off the fence. So look at everybody who's on the fence too, at your secondary audience, and know who can you push in which ways by going after your primary person there, your primary encounter, whatever that may be. And so for the Speaker of the House, for Mike Turzai, we had answers to all of these questions, and we decided direct encounters with him and disrupting the flow of the State House was going to move him to action in the most productive way, knowing that he wants to keep these types of issues very quiet, doesn't like to talk about them, and he'd already tangled with us over these issues in the public square and lost in an embarrassing way. Um, it ended up with him having fracking lobbyists write character references for him in the newspapers as op-eds because it just looked so bad for him. So we knew that he wanted to keep things quiet. We had escalated. There were lobbying meetings leading up to this with him where nothing was being promised or acted on. And so we knew he didn't want this to become a big thing. We made it a big thing right there in the legislature, and that moved him. Looking at your secondary target, right? Always be looking at your audience of who you're trying to polarize, who you're trying to galvanize into action. It's rare that the person or institution that you go after is going to be the first one to jump onto the side of doing the right thing. Oftentimes they're pushed by those around them or whoever your secondary target is. For example, when the civil during the civil rights movement, the actions in Birmingham, Bull Connor was the primary target for a lot of those actions. He was kind of the point of encounter was with him and the police force there. The secondary target was the Kennedy brothers watching in the White House, and they were forced to intervene and take care of the primary target on several occasions during those campaigns. So, always be thinking about who else is out there that you're trying to polarize and pull into the fight, trying to get them involved. The public, your own people, your own community, the media, using the media and social media to reach others, staffers in the building, their colleagues, other public officials, right? You're always keeping in mind kind of who are you pulling off the fence to get involved by going after somebody specific or something specific. I'll share a lot of the times, and I'm speaking personally here, the secondary target is often organized religious institutions for actions that I'm taking. We're often trying to galvanize them into jumping into the fight. Sometimes your secondary target can have a base building goal to it, an organizing goal to it, where you're really trying to um, polarize institutions and groups of people and communities of people into action and organizing. So where can you best force the encounter? So this depends again, right? If you're doing a intervention, a direct action at the point of production, your where is going to be the factory floor, or in our automated modern economies, it can look like a few other things. But for this point of decision action, we wanted to know where was that decision maker going to be? Where are they? Where is their office? When are they in their office? When are they in a committee meeting or in a caucus meeting or on the House floor? Where do they hold fundraisers? Where are their town halls? Where are their community events? Where is this decision maker? Where are points of opportunity that may be odd and things we haven't thought of to really go after them, to really encounter them? Where is a big question to ask. So we've gone through why, who, and where. Let's keep going. This is a quote from Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel from 1963, I believe, possibly 65. Uh, and he wrote, "It is necessary to go to Nineveh." For those who don't know, the story of Jonah from the Bible, Nineveh is where the character of Jonah needs to go. It's the big bad city, capital city of the Assyrian Empire. It is just the hub of greed, corruption, and violence in his time, and that's where he needs to go to do a direct action, to force an encounter with the leadership of Nineveh and the people of Nineveh. So Heschel wrote, "It is necessary to go to Nineveh. It is also vital to learn how to stand before God. For many of us, the march from Selma to Montgomery was both protest and prayer. Legs are not lips, and walking is not kneeling, and yet our legs uttered songs. Even without words, our march was worship. This is just an idea that the where is extremely important, and when you go to where you need to be, it can be a very meaningful experience. We often refer to these things as pilgrimages or going on a journey here. But it can be a very special thing to go to where you need to be. And it's often the hardest possible place to go. The story of Jonah that Rabbi Heschel is referencing here is one where the main character tries to just disappear into the ocean rather than go to where he needed to go. But once he went, it was worth it. And so it's just very important to go to where you need to go. So where did we need to be for this action? We knew where he was likely to be and when he was likely to be there. So to reach the point of decision, we needed to find him. We set up in a couple spots, and I'm sorry, first, it's very hard to find these people sometimes. Your opportunities to encounter them can be pretty few and far between. They're pretty trained at not interacting with uh, the public that wants something of them, that actually wants them to do the right thing. They have secret entry and exit points, onto the House and Senate floor that are under heavy security. There's kind of a tunnel system. It can be pretty hard to track them down. For the top leaders, like the Speaker of the House, they have elevators reserved for them where basically they just have police escort from their office to the elevator that's waiting for them, and then they disappear. It can be pretty difficult to actually find them. So you need to do some research. If you're going to do a point of decision, or really for any action, you need to know where you need to be. Where's your Nineveh and where in Nineveh do you need to be? So this action here, you see us, we're on the backside of the Capitol. This was one of the encounter spots, was the backside of the Capitol. We knew that he often came in this way, that this was his way to get into the Capitol. Other legislators come in through the front, some come in through the Ryan building, some come in through the garage underground, some come in through the ramp up all the way up at the top. There's different ways that they get into the building, and we knew this was where he was likely to be. We knew that from past experience. And so we had all these people and the backside of the Capitol waiting. And these people had gone there. Um, I'm sorry, let's go to the next slide. So the what? Um, right, so what are you doing to force the encounter here, right? How can you best do it? So in this gift ban action, you saw the money drop. You saw, or you're about to see some pictures of a sit-in element of that action. And then, these are just some other things that you can do, right? You can just block a doorway, a hallway. You can bird dog. You can do a creative song or dance. You can occupy space. You can rededicate a space to another purpose, such as housing human beings. You can do really a whole lot of things in this way to force the encounter. And there's really no limit to people's imagination here. Let's go one more slide. Right, so here we go. Going into this action a little bit more. You see here uh, a headline. This was a headline from the papers, so he did lend his support to the activists, to us after we showered him with I'm sorry, we showered lawmakers with dollar bills, and then many folks got arrested. Okay, so let's piece this whole action together. I'm going to tell the story from start to finish here. We've gone through a couple elements, why we did it, past the gift ban. It was part of a larger escalation of tactics. We did it to the Speaker of the House at the time, and the secondary audience was quite vast, so we know who we were encountering and why, and then the where and the what. Let's go through that story. So the where. The day started at the church next to the Capitol. We did a big training. We left there. One team of people left the church early, and they went into the Capitol separately, and they looked very innocuous. They looked like tourists. That was, I think, 10 people there. Everybody else marched from the church to the front of the Capitol, around the side of the Capitol, past the Capitol Police Station, and then to the back side of the Capitol. We made a whole lot of noise, and we were essentially a diversion. So we knew that he might be back there, that the Speaker of the House might come in that way. So we waited, we waited, we waited, and then we eventually did a sit-in to block that back entrance. That's the picture on the right where it says "Money silences us," and you see all those people there with dollar bills taped over their mouths, and that was the first arrestable part of the day. Those people were arrested and then taken into the Capitol Police Station. And they needed to act at that time. That set of arrestables needed to go, even though the Speaker of the House hadn't walked in yet, because they were actually a diversion to draw all of the Capitol Police away. So while they're being processed, this first group, the Speaker of the House then walks up. And this is where you see the picture on the left here of everybody encountering him. It happened a couple minutes after the arrest started. And they had a very productive encounter with him. There was a lot of back and forth. It did get pretty heated at times. Our people did a great job of holding their own, of stating the demand clearly. At one point, the Speaker of the House said, "Well, you people don't understand how this place works." And one of our people said, "No, we actually understand exactly how this place works, and that's why we're here." And just didn't let him control the narrative, didn't let him be the narrator, but just kept the pressure on, kept the demand front and center, and it rocked him a bit. So then he walks through the doors as people have already been arrested, and he goes right onto the House floor. And as the first group of arrestables are sitting in the Capitol Police Station, the Capitol Police radio goes, all the radios go off, and it says, all units to the House Gallery, all units to the House Gallery. So that was our second point of encounter there, was the House floor. And the gallery is the big balcony about 4 stories up, looking down on the House floor. And so we had our people positioned there, that first group that entered the Capitol kind of quietly. They were all where they needed to be, which was in the House Gallery. And they had started throwing that $500 down, and dropping a banner as well that stated the demand. And arrests started happening right after that. By the time everybody got out of jail, about 90 minutes after that, the Speaker of the House had made his public statement: "I support the gift ban and we'll get it done within a few months." And so that action, it worked. It got him to commit to the right thing, which he saw through halfway, and then jump ship to go become a lobbyist for private water suppliers, the people who jack up your rates on your water bill. So yeah, so that was the action. That was that action that day. Let's go to the next slide. Here's a political cartoon uh, stating that, or recapping that action. We were able to dramatize the injustice through this creative action here. It definitely stuck in the minds of Harrisburg, and it's something that still gets brought up in meetings today. Um, and it's a good conversation starter to this day. So I'm going to keep going here. I don't think Kevin is on. Kevin, are you on? I'm just going to take us through a little discussion here. First question for everybody, just what do you think? What are you thinking so far? Any thoughts or questions? Feel free to come off mute or put them in the chat. I'm going to ask you a series of questions then. Whoop, we got a heart. Excellent.
I got a couple questions.
Okay.
Um, First of all, what is the typical amount of bail for actions like this, and how do you keep them from being felonies and just staying misdemeanors? Because I'm in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and there was a direct action years ago in Oklahoma City at this place called Devon Energy. It's the tallest building in Oklahoma City. And these kids had a banner that had black glitter on it, and they charged them with bioterrorism because the glitter was falling off the balcony. And I'm sure the aftermath wasn't as bad as it started being, but how do you make sure you're
Yeah.
able to get out of jail?
So we're gonna do a lot in the second half of this class just on that subject, but I'll just give a very quick answer, and then we're going to dive into a lot more detail there. But a quick answer to your very specific thing is have good lawyers. When it comes to that bioterrorism charge that's come up, the way that the Patriot Act was written, it gives the police a lot of latitude to charge for anything that has the appearance of chemical attack or bioterrorism of any kind. Even if it's kind of pretty obvious that it's not that, they can still charge that and take you through that process, which is miserable and can really mess you up. We've had our lawyer call us up the night before an action and say, you know, if you want to dye the fountain in the back of the Capitol green, you know, you're going to do it, but they could hit you with this, and it sounds like what you just described there. So we actually changed our plan based off that legal advice, knowing that we were going from summary citation to felony in that process, and that action wasn't worth it to do that. But yeah, we're going to go into a lot more detail about that. Anything else here? Any other thoughts or questions, or we should just go into the next half here? Yeah, let's keep going here. Oh, sorry here. So I'm sorry, Haley. Let's go back one more. Let's just do a quick quiz here. Bottom left, what's the point of intervention? That action that says gift ban there, what's the point of intervention? Quick quiz. Who's got it? What's that building? Where are we? Point of decision, right? What's the subject of it? From one picture, can you tell what it's about?
The gift ban.
The gift ban, right? Nice and easy. You want to be thinking, right? We've gone through kind of the why. We've built a little bit of an action narrative. I just want to close out with that one last thought of when you do an action, ideally from one picture, you can build an entire story. You can really tell the entire story. You can evoke a lot of emotion from just one picture, one headline. Let's keep going here. And then, Michael, I'm going to pass it off to you in a minute. All right, so these are just some headlines. Yeah, you want to make your images succinct. You want to really convey a lot with your banners, with your signs. You want to be very expressive with your imagery. You want to tell a complete story in a headline. You want to tell a complete story in a picture.
Michael,
Um,
can
please,
I say something on this one?
please.
Cool, yeah. So, yeah, sorry, the banner is not, the image of the banner isn't here. I think it's in another slide, but this is from our action in, I believe, yeah, 2019 as the PA Poor People's Campaign at the point of decision around the repealing of general assistance, which Governor Wolf, as a Democratic governor, did not save general assistance. It's a cash assistance program for very, very low income people in our state. It does not exist anymore. But I think what we were able to do by this action that interrupted the proceedings and also was preceded by a number of different tactics that sort of escalated to this point, as we talked about before. We were able to kind of we forced both the Democrats to have to really take a position, and we also forced a wedge. We sort of put a wedge between the Republicans, and two of the Republicans actually declined to vote with their party and voted in support of general assistance. And so this article kind of talks about how the session devolved into a shouting match. And, I think that without the action that we did, despite the fact that general assistance was not saved, we would not have forced people into taking these positions. I think it would have just been a very smooth kind of vote, and it would have quietly, they would have quietly repealed general assistance and, continued the war on the poor with no one shining a light on it, with no one demanding that people pick a side. And in fact, successfully getting a couple of folks to switch sides through that action. And so I think was something incredibly powerful about that action around general assistance in 2019.
Absolutely. Thank you, Nishmi. And Michael, I'm going to pass it to you in a second. We're going to watch a video and we're going to watch the first 1 minute and 20 seconds of that video and then pause, and then we're going to watch another 2 minutes of it until 3:24. So first section until 1:20, and then let's do it.
All are responsible. Some are guilty. All are responsible. Money up, people in. Money out, 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 people in.
This is outside of the House gallery. We're watching the arrests happen. Pause. Michael, you want to take this section?
Sure thing. So, different risk factors make risking arrest a different choice for different people. This is the video, as Michael already said, following the money drop. And Tim, the star of our little video right there, is a reverend and a white adult male. He's someone who the police generally are comfortable around, and this gives him an added layer of protection in any encounter with the state that is dominated by people more sympathetic to his race, his gender, his age, and his religious leadership. Let's go again until 3:24.
They already called a recess.
Money out! People in! 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 Money out! People
Boss,
I think we can stop now. Kyle was the guy in the flannel shirt. Um, I don't know if you noticed, but everyone else pretty much came out and they led them down the hall, or they already had them cuffed. They had them standing waiting. Like when Reverend Tim was arrested, he was standing and upright. But what did they do to Kyle? They leaned him up against the wall. He later said that he was in a lot of pain in that position. That was a casual, small, possibly not even conscious choice made by the police. Kyle presents a little bit differently than Tim. He's younger. He's wearing flannel instead of a priest collar, and the police already knew him from 2 years before, and he has a long arrest record for nonviolent civil disobedience. And he had a New Jersey's driver's license. Different people have different risk factors when dealing with police. Police tend to treat black and brown people worse than they treat white people. They treat rich people better than they treat poor people. They treat middle-aged people better than they treat young people. They treat cis-presenting people better than LGBTQ people. People who present as professionals are treated differently from those who don't. Undocumented people, people on probation, or people with criminal records, and anyone with the state does not, and anyone that the state doesn't want, like dealing with for whatever reason, are more vulnerable. So when you go to an action, you have to be hyper aware of these type of things. The other thing about the arrest process is it's different everywhere. We've been looking at the Capitol, and this kind of goes to the question about Oklahoma. The arrest process is different everywhere. The Capitol Police are used to dealing with protests. They have a system in place. The same is also true enough for large cities, usually. If you get arrested in a smaller place, in rural places, if you get arrested at places of business that are favored by our police and our government, then you're going to have a different experience. Rural places and suburban places, these departments don't necessarily have a whole lot of experience with protesters, and they may be as rattled as you or I might be if we were engaged in a nonviolent direct action. I also want to say this, police are human, just like us. They bring baggage to every encounter. And that's a short way of saying that every arrest, even arrests in the Capitol, are going to be different because you're dealing with different people all the time. Just to give you some examples of different types of ways the police interact, there was a tree sit in Huntington County along the Mariner East pipeline. The local sheriff was not used to protest, never had anything to do with it. And all of a sudden he had a group of folks that were sitting in trees trying to stop this pipeline. It seemed to me that he was itching to do arrests from the very beginning. I mean, he wanted to arrest people. And at one point, a young woman was concerned that someone up in the tree was being put in harm's way because a chainsaw crew was cutting a tree very close to where the tree sitter was. And so she went out just to point to the person in the tree, and she was immediately arrested. She was hauled off, and she was, well, I'll get to it in a second. At the same time, in a different part of the property, someone else had a walkie-talkie, and they were talking to other people just to make sure everyone was all right. And again, this sheriff arrested these folks. Now, both of these people got thrown in the back of the police car, and they got really serious charges. They were charged with felonies. They had like $200,000 bail. It was crazy, very scary situation. In the end, the charges were dismissed, but it was scary. The good news is those two people met in the back of the car, and they're now a happily married couple. So it was kind of fun little fact. Another thing that you would deal with is in big cities, you're dealing with police that may have come with ideas about what protesters are. I was arrested at a Trump fundraiser in 2016. And while I was arrested, I I blocked the doorway. When I was obvious I wasn't going to be blocking anymore, I got up and went towards the Secret Service and others, and they very gently picked me up and put me on the ground face down. Uh, that contrasts very much from a group that was earlier, a bunch of young kids that went to um, an event that then candidate Trump was at. They were blocking a doorway, and they were very forcefully thrown to the ground. So, I mean, there's different ways of police responding, and there's going to be different kinds of uh, experiences, no matter where you are. Next slide. Okay, when you go to an action, there's some things you should do, and there's some things you should not do. When you go to an action, do not bring weapons. Keys don't count as a weapon, but other things do. Like if you have a pocket knife or that kind of stuff, don't bring it. Don't bring illegal drugs. Don't bring legal drugs that aren't in a prescription bottle. These kind of things set off alarm bells for police departments. What you could bring with you, what you should bring with you, oftentimes, if you want to get out quicker, is bring a photo ID with your address on it. A driver's license works perfectly. And bring 72 hours worth of medication in a prescription bottle. And if you're like me, then each one of your medications should be in a prescription bottle. So you might have 3 or 4 in your pocket. Every action has a stuff keeper to hold your stuff during the action. I personally like to take as little stuff as possible with me, so I hand it off. And my other advice would be don't take anything with you that you would feel bad about losing. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. Next slide. If you're arrested in the Capitol, you will likely be cuffed with either metal cuffs like the ones you see on TV, or more likely zip ties. This is something that they use. It's a disposable product. But anyway, yeah. And then you'll be brought down to the Capitol Police Station. That's on the ground floor. Sometimes they won't even cuff you at all. It's not usual, but it definitely could happen. And in other places, the police may not even take you anywhere. They may process you right on the street, may not even cuff you. They may just process you on the street. When you get processed, what that means is you're going to be charged and booked. They'll take your ID, they'll photograph you, they'll check your record, and at the end, they'll give you what your charges were. You'll get some kind of a citation. If you're charged with a summary citation, summary is kind of like a parking ticket or something like that, loitering. But if you're charged with a summary citation, you'll be let out fairly quickly. In the Capitol, they'll let you out 1 to 3 hours later. You'll go out a side door. And if you're working with March on Harrisburg or the Poor People's Campaign, there'll be people out there waiting for you. If you're charged with a misdemeanor, that's a whole different ball of wax. If you're charged with a misdemeanor in the Capitol, you'll be sent on a car or a van to the Dauphin County Jail. It's about a 15-minute drive. You'll be cuffed the entire time. It's uncomfortable. It can be even kind of scary because you can't catch yourself when they go around curves. And you'll be in that cell for 2 to 6 hours, depending on how soon you can get to see a judge, because you're going to see a judge. Usually it's on his TV screen. He's going to read you your charges and will basically tell you what the next steps are. And then you'll get a piece of paper and you will be released. When I was arrested at the Trump fundraiser, not only did they process me. And this is often the case when you go to like Dauphin County. They'll also take some of your stuff. They'll take your shoelaces, your belt. They'll take things out of your pocket. They'll put them in a box, and you can claim them on the way out. I think the Allegheny County Sheriff's Office was kind of pissed at me because it was a Trump fundraiser and their union had just recently endorsed Trump. When I went to get my stuff at the end of the day, I didn't have any shoelaces. They somehow managed to lose them and they couldn't find them for anything. So that was interesting. And then I was actually there for 12 hours. They didn't let me out until 2 in the morning. I'd been arrested at 12. So, I mean, it varies from time to time. You always have a right to water and you have a right to a bathroom.
Hold the audio now on mute.
I have a question. Why would they want to arrest people like that is my question.
Let's
And
let's finish this part, and we're gonna have actually a lengthy time after this to talk about all that.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, I just want to get through this, and then we can go through it. But definitely hold on to that. Next slide. Okay, usually, if you get arrested in the Capitol, you will have fines for a summary offense of around $200, and there might be some court costs associated with that as well. And like I said, it's like a parking violation. It'll be on your record, but it's not gonna be like something that's gonna be disqualifying for most people. A misdemeanor can range from $200 to over $1,000. With small amounts of community service time, perhaps, or a shorter multi-month jail sentence. March on Harrisburg has gotten misdemeanor charges from time to time in the Capitol. They argued down to a summary and no jail time involved. But keep in mind that you can fight any of these charges. You don't have to just accept what they say. You can go to court. And if it's a misdemeanor and it's over $1,000 and over 6 months in jail, you can actually have a jury trial, and that can be very advantageous. That can be a way of continuing the action. And when I say continuing the action, it's a way for you to continue to talk about what you did beyond the one-day event. Next slide. People often ask, what about if I get arrested? Is that going to, am I going to lose my license to practice my profession? Am I going to lose my job? Now, if you work in law enforcement or the Defense Department, or if you work with the state or federal government, you better ask your supervisor first, but it will generally not be something they approve of, and you may have some consequences. For people like teachers, social workers, nurses, and other professionals with licenses, doctors, if you are worried, ask your supervisor, but it's generally not a problem. My own story is I'm a retired teacher, but while I was teaching, I went to my superintendent and told him what I planned to do. He looked at me like I was crazy, but he said, as long as you don't offend community standards, it's not a problem. Go for it. So that works. At this point now, we'd like to open it up for some discussion. We realize that arrests are things that people are worried about.
Hold the audio now unmuted.
I have a question. My name is Brian. I'm from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. If you're being if you're being nonviolent, why would a cop want to arrest you at all is my question.
Anybody can get into this, but go ahead, Mike. Yeah, I saw you were going to talk.
And if you're and if you're peacefully protesting, doesn't our Constitution say we can peacefully protest? Why would they want to arrest peaceful protesters?
So Brian, it's often a really a great experience to go through a direct action and see it happen, because you'll be struck by the absurdity that yes, they are arresting peaceful protesters. Yes, they are arresting people who are using their freedom of speech and using their freedom to petition their government.
I
And
mean, I couldn't afford to do this because I'm trying to get work as a 911 dispatcher for one of the counties in PA here, and I do not want that in my record. You know what I mean, sir?
yeah, and I definitely I talk with a lawyer before you go into a specific action, about that because it might be something and it might not be something. But so direct actions often result in arrests, not always, but a lot of the time because you are kind of stepping over the law and doing something that is illegal in order to force an encounter, in order to get your message across,
But
in
if our
order.
Constitution says we could peacefully protest, why? You get what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, of course, the Constitution says a lot of things. Our freedom of speech doesn't really line up with what the Constitution promises. Our the role of the government to promote the general welfare is also in the Constitution, and it falls pretty short there too. In the Pennsylvania Constitution, we have a provision that guarantees us a clean environment, safe drinking water and safe land and all of that. So we don't really live up to the actual word of the Constitution most of the time, and that's part of why we do these direct actions, is to assert, yes, we do have the freedom of speech, we do have the freedom to protest, to assemble. And in Pennsylvania, in fact, we have, and there's a direct quote from our Constitution, we have the responsibility to alter, reform, or abolish our government as we see proper. So there's a lot of constitutional power vested in the people. Um, that's kind of the premise of democracy, right? It's power with the
Right.
people, and we need to make
Right.
that real. So a lot of the time, actions will go into an arrestable place, and that's just in order to actually carry out the encounter, the mission. If you're going to encounter the House Majority Leader and he never leaves his office, then you being in his office is criminal trespassing because that's what they've decided it is. Then that's what you're going to get charged with when you go in to see him. And that's happened many times. That's a very specific example.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Can I
Uh,
just build on something
Please.
you said,
Sure.
Michael? And Brian, you talked about you'd like to be involved in this, but not necessarily risk arrest. Every one of these actions, and Michael's going to talk about it later, or Nishmi, one or the other is going to talk about it later. Every one of these actions requires people
Yeah.
who are not in arrestable positions. So you can get involved and never, ever risk arrest. You don't even have to be there for some of the roles. So that's true.
Good.
Aaron, I see your hand up.
Yeah, I was actually just gonna, I had two things, but I was gonna say exactly what you said. There's a place for everybody in this movement, and whatever your individual risk tolerance is, there's a place for you. If you're in
Awesome.
a position where you can't get arrested or afraid of getting arrested, there's always like being the guy that takes all the stuff when you're getting arrested, or just being an observer and taking video. There's all kinds of stuff. Um,
Oh yeah, and we're going to
I
go
can't
into all that in a
and I
minute.
can't remember the second thing I was gonna say, so I'll just move on.
Sounds good. Yasmin, just really quickly from the chat. So when you're doing an action, there's going to be legal support, and we're going to go into some of those roles around that in a minute. Yeah. Nishmi, please.
Yeah, and I really appreciate this conversation, and I think I think we run into
Basically, what
this.
basically what should be done
Oh,
is I think we should get permission from officers to protest before we do anything, in my opinion. Let the departments know what's going on, so
Okay,
they're
so
not.
that's what I was gonna say.
I'm sorry, I'm muting people here. Don't interrupt. Nishmi, go, please.
Yeah, thanks. No, I think this is a really good discussion, and we're always going to run into this real challenge that it's legal to pollute a river, right? It's legal to pollute our air and our water. It's legal to close hospitals. It's legal to criminalize homeless folks for not having housing when housing isn't available, right? But it's not legal to interrupt a legislative proceeding or to, block a route when a legislator or a power holder is trying to zip out the back door or get in their car, right? So I think that part of what we're talking about here is, sort of calling into question the legality of the system that denies us our rights. And Ron Casanova of the homeless union, the original homeless union, was famously quoted as saying, in taking over houses, I don't care if it's against the law. I'm dying on the streets, and that should be against the law, right? And I know that in the Poor People's Campaign, we've talked a lot. We talked a lot in the lead up to the 40 days of action about how Dr. King said that, when there's an emergency, the ambulance is allowed to go through red lights, right? When it's emergency, the ambulance puts on its sirens and it runs right through those red lights. And that we have to be ambulance drivers, right? Because there's an emergency going on, right? There's an emergency. And so I just want to, agree that there's so many different roles. We're going to talk about them. It's very possible to be really involved in supporting an action like this without getting arrested. And also, it is our collectivity, right? It is our discipline, it's our togetherness that protects us. And I know I myself have been part of and have seen other people, even folks who have records and even folks who have a significant amount of risk, being part of collective actions. And where it's possible, when there's like a summary offense from something like this and there's simply a fine, right, that we collectively fundraise and pay off, it's not something that then shows up on your record after that, right? And so I do think that it's obviously it's very situational, as we've said, it's very contextual. And we often have, again, collectively, right, the consultation of a lawyer to help us kind of sort through and figure things out. But the whole point here is that no one's doing anything alone. And it's our collectivity that really protects us in the end of the day, right? And protects and is committed to protecting every single person in the entire process. And so I just wanted to share that as well.
Here, here. Thank you. Thank you. Just to address a couple questions in the chat here before we keep moving and cover some more information. Bill, it is absolutely possible for police to withhold medication even if it's prescribed. They can be cruel. It is something that there are stories of them doing that or making people jump through hoops for significant medical conditions. It's good to be very thoughtful about that because it can happen. It likely will not, but it can. And then Martha, to respond to your comment there. Right. Nonviolent direct action is when asking permission has already failed. You don't get to a place of risking arrest without having tried things, quote unquote, the right way. We showed that escalation of tactics earlier in the presentation, right? You're not going to show up to somebody's office and say, hey, meet with us or else I'm not leaving. Uh, and then they have the police drag you out instead. You don't get to that point until you've tried to meet with them, right? Until you've tried every other way to get through to them. And then I can't really speak to the difference between police and ICE encounters around meds. Does anybody else want to take that one? I think that's just a specific question for a lawyer to ask. And for every direct action, there are lawyers to ask questions of, and let's keep going there. So let's get into some roles. Every action has roles. You're working together, you're a collective, you're carrying out a mission. It's helpful to kind of know who's doing what and who has what responsibilities so that all together you can move forward as one unit. You can move forward together. So these are some roles we're going to go through: the planning team, action leads, the arrestables, trainers, art coordinator, logistics, peacekeepers, chant leaders, police liaison, jail support, legal observers, media wrangler, media spokespeople, social media coordinator, cameras. So it's good to have in an action, you kind of want 10 to 20 people to really pull off an action effectively. You can do actions with smaller numbers of people. It is possible to really double up a lot of these roles. But for the most part, kind of a sweet spot to aim for is at least 10, 10 to 20. And that, of course, depends on where you're going to be, who or what you're trying to encounter, and what your actual plan is. Right? If you're trying to block a doorway and the doorway is 2 people wide, that requires different numbers than if the doorway is 8 people wide. It often numbers also come down to who your people are. Some people we've worked with Teamsters and it's 4 people to a doorway. And sometimes with scrawny college kids, it's 8 people to a doorway. So just knowing your people and making sure you have a good team in place to carry out these roles, whether everybody has one or you're all taking on multiple roles. The planning team. And by the way, most of these roles are not arrestable, you'll notice. The planning team is well defined. It has a good sense of who is in it and who is not in it, as do all teams, but this one especially. It needs good security culture. If you are planning your actions over Zoom, you're going to be preempted from carrying them out. The police will know where you're going to try to get to, and they will make sure that you don't get there, as they do. We've had actions before where the police have known what our red team meant, what our orange team was, what our purple team was, and kind of they knew our action because even if you just have a cell phone in the room with you, that's enough of a bug to be keyed into. So when you're planning your action, you want to really have good security culture, leave all your electronic devices, a good distance away, and just be mindful of that. The planning team, of course, plans the action and coordinates all the roles and responsibilities. The planning team really knows the action from every angle, inside and out, step by step. Let's keep going. Your action leads. Action leads are often part of the action planning team, but not necessarily. And they run the action as it's happening. It's usually one or a small group. I'm sorry, more than one. It's good to have more than one in case one gets arrested. And these are the people that are there to make quick decisions as things happen. So sometimes the police are blocking your entrance to an office, and so you go to your plan B. And the action lead is the one who makes that call and says, okay, we're done with plan A, we're moving to plan B, go. Or something happens along the way and a decision needs to be made. The action lead is there to try to bring everybody in the action together really quickly to reach consensus. But sometimes actions, decisions need to be made very quickly and they're just making them on the fly. So they're the leaders who are there in case something needs to change and keep moving forward. The arrestables. These are people who are willing to risk arrest. So most nonviolent direct actions will cross the legal line and put you into an arrestable territory. Often they highlight the absurdity of the law itself by being an arrestable thing. We've talked about the housing takeovers, and right, it's an absurd thing that it's legal for you to die on the streets without a house, but it's illegal for you to try to live in an abandoned house, right? So just you being arrested by entering that abandoned house is highlighting the absurdity of the law itself and the injustice of the law itself, the cruelty of the law itself, the inhumanity of it. So the arrestables are the ones who are willing to risk arrest. They're often called the red team. Non-arrestables are often called the green team, but there's different terminology. Arrestables are responsible for kind of being right there in the front and commanding the space. They're often giving that impacted testimony, explaining why we're doing this action, who we are, how these issues affect us, really putting our suffering front and center to be dealt with by the power structure. This is really the group that's addressing the oppressor directly, getting right in their face, being as close as you can, forcing that encounter. And then we have the trainers. You need your trainers. You always need to do a training. Don't go into an action without a training. Your training makes sure that everybody knows what they're doing, everybody is good with the plan, is participating to the plan, and really the training will help you walk through step by step every single thing that you're hopefully going to do. And it's very rare for an action to happen exactly as it's planned, but it's still helpful to walk through exactly what the plan is and plan for any contingencies and changes that you may encounter. Sometimes with actions, your plan may even change a little bit the morning of the action based off of what you're seeing. When we do an action in the state capitol, we'll generally send a couple people into the building hours before to just kind of see what's happening and see are the police all standing in a line somewhere? What's going on? Is there anything that should inform the action? So the trainers are often helping um, update the action with last second information and whatever's necessary, and getting everybody organized and ready to go. And then next up we have the art coordinator. You need art. It was Emma Goldman said, "I don't want to be part of any revolution that doesn't involve dancing." So same goes for art. You need art. Art is a creative way to really get through to people. The power of metaphor is very real. The power of artistic expression is very real. So you need kind of your art coordinator to make sure that you have your banners, your signs, your action props if you have any, and any other materials. You need to make sure you have them. And then we go to the logistics coordinator. You need to have somebody who's there to take care of all the logistics of the day, or of the campaign, of the actions. Transportation, housing, food, supplies, any special needs support, any childcare, and any potential permits. And not necessarily a permit to do your action, but we often use permits as a way to claim the space and then from that space do something else, do an action. It's just a helpful thing in the state capitol to make sure that you get through the door, and then from there you can go do what you need to do what you want to do. By the way, you don't want people going into an action on an empty stomach. Logistics is incredibly important. You really got to take care of your basic needs when you're going into an action. Then you have your peacekeepers. Peacekeepers are meant to be easily identifiable. They usually wear reflective vests or something else that lets you know who they are. When the group is moving, when it's crossing streets or going from A to B, the peacekeepers are really there to help manage traffic, keep everybody safe, make sure everybody stays together. And then when an action is happening and it becomes an arrestable action, the peacekeepers are generally the people who make sure that there's a distinct separation between arrestables and non-arrestables. So if you remember that action from before that we were looking at when that group was sitting at the back of the Capitol, blocking that doorway with the banner that said "Money silences us," and there was another group standing about 15 to 20 feet away from them. And in between those two groups were the peacekeepers, so that the people who are not there to get arrested won't be with the people who are there to get arrested when arrests are happening. So it's often a role of peacekeepers to just make sure that people are where they need to be during the action itself, especially when it comes to mixing the arrestables and the non-arrestables in the right moment. And then you really just want to make them also visible, and to help de-escalate anything that may arise, especially outside the Capitol is usually where, yeah. And again, we're given examples of a specific set of actions here. Your police liaison. So the police liaison is a good role to have in actions. You don't want anybody else talking to the police. The police liaison is there so that your group has one person communicating with the police and only one person. You don't want different people giving different information to the police. You want one source of information who knows exactly what to say. And really what they share is, information-wise, is this is a nonviolent action. This is a nonviolent action. Hello, my name is so-and-so. I'm the police liaison. Those are the first things that the police liaison says when the police arrive on the scene, just so that they know not to escalate to violence right away. That just to take a little bit of their edge off as they come in. This is nonviolent. And then you introduce yourself as the police liaison so that they know you're the person to talk to. And the police liaison is also in charge of figuring out where the arrestables are being taken and when they're going to be released and where they're going to be released. So the police liaison will ask the police, usually the top-ranking member of the police, hey, where are they being taken? What's happening here? What are they being charged with? And then, the police liaison always keeps in mind too that, police are not our friends. They're there working a very specific job. They are trained to gather information. They are trained to thwart actions when they can. And it's important for the police liaison to disclose really as little information as possible, and really only disclose exactly what is necessary. It can be helpful if you're doing an action that's very sympathetic, that you think the police might actually care about. It can be helpful for the police liaison to give a little blurb to them about why you're there and what you're doing. The police liaison also, as Michael wrote in the chat here, communicates information on behalf of the arrestables. And sometimes if an arrestable is injured or old or has a bad back or something, the police liaison can communicate that to the police. Hey, just so you know, Jim over there has a bad shoulder. And what that'll do is they won't handcuff them in the same way. They might do something different. It might create a moment of sympathy between the police and that person, which can help them stay a little safer in that moment. So just really the most important part of the slide is only one person talks to the police, and that's the police liaison, and nobody else talks to the police. Let's keep going. It can only go badly if you do. Jail support. Jail support are the people there to get your people out of jail. Sorry, not to get them out, to greet them when they get out. So before you do an action that's going to be an arrestable action, your arrestables fill out jail support forms that have basic information, emergency contact, medical information, anything like that, anything that's relevant. And the jail support team holds onto those forms and really uses those to make sure that nobody is left behind, to make sure that everybody does get out of jail. And sometimes there will be instructions that the jail support team will carry out, like, hey, if we're in jail for more than 4 hours, call my partner so-and-so at this number and just let them know, for whatever reason. Jail support also is kind of that first line to help you with your legal support when you get out of jail. They're going to make sure that they have a picture of your citation, of your charges, and just are managing that information of everybody's legal charges. Oh, and they also generally have food and drinks and hugs and music and all of that, and will help people transport from jail to wherever they need to get to. And then next up, we have legal support. It's good to have on-call lawyers during the action. It's good to have lawyers at your training to help answer people's specific questions. Hey, if I get hit with this charge, is it going to affect this professional license? That's a pretty common question that gets asked. So it's helpful to have a lawyer that, if they're not there on the ground, at least you can call them and ask them those types of questions. And the legal support team is also organizing that pro bono representation for afterward. The slides are definitely going to be available afterward, yeah, as is the recording of all of this. Yeah, you don't have to memorize all this information. You'll have access to it. And then next up, we're going to keep going with the legal theme. Legal observers. So your legal support are there to help you kind of after the action. Your legal observers are there to document the action itself. So legal observers are really nice to have at actions because they provide an independent documentation of what's happening. Police will often lie in court. They are allowed to lie to you outside of court. They'll do that too. They'll say all sorts of things and throw out all sorts of threats. But then in court too, they'll often bend the truth. And so it's good to have an independent verifier, and that's what your legal observers are. They're there to say, well, this is actually what happened. I wrote it down, and I am a trained legal observer. A lot of legal observers work through the National Lawyers Guild, and then there's also a lot of other groups that organize legal observers. They usually wear those light green hats, and they tend to be pretty good at just kind of hanging out in the background, observing, taking good notes, and documenting things. They are just incredibly helpful and a very good safeguard against being taken advantage of, getting screwed over in the courtroom, especially if something big happens that wasn't according to plan. They're there for those kind of worst case situations as well. They're very helpful to have. Chant leaders, we'll call them theomusicologists here in the Poor People's Campaign. Your theomusicologists are leading your chants, your songs, keeping the rhythm of the action, playing music, making sure that the action has sound. You don't just want to, unless your action is a silent march, you don't just want a silent march. You don't just want a silent action. So your theomusicologist makes sure that the action has rhythm, it has sound, it has audio, and they're bringing movement music in, they're bringing spiritual music in, they're bringing good stuff in. Yeah, and as Michael wrote in the chat there, music is also a really important part of kind of keeping the calm, often amongst the arrestables themselves. I don't think you noticed in the gift ban action, everybody was chanting past the gift ban, stop taking bribes on repeat. And that was, that's to get the word out, of course, but it also has a very self-soothing and communally calming effect. When you're singing and the person next to you is singing and you're singing together, it tends to kind of keep you focused and less prone to um, any anxieties or nerves kind of taking over. It's a very magical thing that happens during actions. The power of music is really hard to overstate. Let's keep going here. Media wrangler. So the media needs to know what they're covering, where they're covering it, what to look out for, who to talk to, all of these things. So your media wrangler is really in charge of making sure that the press have been advised as to what's happening. It's called a press advisory. You send it out before. The press release is what you send out after the action. That the press calls have been made, which is when you call them the morning of the action or the day before to remind them and let them know to come on out. And then also wrangling the media in real time is a pretty big task and a very important one. They need to know where to be, depending on the action you're taking. They need to know where to be and when to be there. So gathering a group of reporters together, right before an action, and making sure that they're standing at this corner at exactly 11:05 a.m. because you know it's going to come around the corner, and you want to make sure that they're there to see it. So really wrangling the media is crucial. If they're not there, they're not going to report it, and you have to make sure they're where the story is happening and are advised about it ahead of time. And then you have your media spokespeople. Um, just like police liaison, your media spokespeople are focused and trained. It's good to have a small number of them. 2 to 3 is a pretty solid number. Most articles aren't going to give more quotes than that, from 2 to 3 different people or so, maybe 2 to 4. And your media spokespeople are the ones who are trained on how to talk to the media. Some media is friendly, some media is neutral, and some media is hostile. And hostile media will try to get you to say stupid, distracting things and make that into the story. So that's why your spokespeople are trained on how to avoid taking that bait, how to stay focused, and how to make sure that what your messaging is for the action is accurate and focused and limited, and on point. You don't want uh, the media to not really know what's happening or to be receiving mixed messages or to be receiving confused messages, or you don't want somebody who this is their first time at an action. They're not even really participating. They're really just there to observe, and yet the media is interviewing them and they're setting the narrative in the papers. You want your media spokespeople to be focus trained, and they're the only ones who talk to the media. If anybody else talks to the media, I'm sorry, if the media talks to anybody else, they say, please go talk to the media spokesperson. They're standing over there. There are a lot of roles here, and we do have the slides for everybody. So this is all going to be written down. And a reminder too that a lot of these roles you can double up. And in smaller actions, that's often what happens. So another role is your social media coordinator. This is the person who's there to make sure that you get the word out through social media, that your social media accounts are broadcasting the action and you're engaging with people. It's often helpful to go live on Facebook and or on TikTok, live tweeting, and just recap posts on everything. It's also helpful for this person to help get the word out ahead of time. If you want to get the word out ahead of time, sometimes you don't. But promoting the action and doing outreach through social media can often be pretty helpful. So your social media coordinator is just there to make sure that everything you want out on the web gets out there, and the word is spread and amplified. And they're also helping to organize your own people to engage their own social media accounts and platforms. Just like with everything else here we're talking about tonight, leadership development and base building is a key part of it. For all of these roles, you're developing each other's leadership, you're developing your own, and you're organizing through them. Almost every time we try to do a direct action, we try to have somebody different write the press release and the press advisory. It's a really good skill to teach, for people to develop. Um, every one of these roles, you're developing leaders, you're developing leadership, your own and others, and building the movement. If you go through an action and did no leadership development, I mean, you learn nothing, and that's not good. You got to keep learning and growing. Cameras. Your cameras are there to document the event from start to finish. Make sure you have the right equipment. Oftentimes, phones are good enough today. They're especially the newer iPhones have pretty stellar cameras that have professional quality to them. But just make sure that you have the right equipment for whatever you're doing. If you want microphones, wireless microphones are helpful. Make sure your equipment is on point, and people know what to do with that footage after the action, and make sure that it's ready to go for post-event communications when you're sharing a video a week later or sending a couple pictures alongside the press release to the media. You need to have cameras to make all that happen. And I think those are all the roles. We just went through a lot of roles here, folks, and we're going to ask you first. I'm sorry, I'm going to read what Michael wrote in the chat here. Right, it's just so spot on. The best way to learn about direct action is to participate, and you can start wherever you feel comfortable and plug into the best role for you. Plug into the best role for you. What action roles are you interested in? If you were to join an action, where do you see yourself? Or any thoughts or questions about the roles? You can write in the chat, or raise your hand here. What's your role? And actually, Haley, can we go back to that slide maybe 15 slides ago that just lists all of the roles together? And Mary Fran, you wrote peacekeeper and media liaison. Excellent roles. Zevi wants to be an arrestable. Excellent. Nicole's a chant leader. Jen D asks about travel. Jen, most of our member organizations are doing actions across the state. So there's generally places to plug in. And just make sure you're connected with a member org, and we'll make sure you're there. We have arrestable from Leslie. Robin said arrestable, peacekeeper, chant leader. Excellent. Yeah, and thank you, Najmi, for asking in the chat. Sorry, one at a time here. Bill wrote, how can we know when an action might be planned in order to get involved? Get organized. So if you want to get further organized into the campaign and you aren't, please just put your name and email in the chat, and we'll be sure to just kind of bump you up to the top of the base building list, and we'll reach out and set up a conversation with you. And make sure that you're connected. Yasmin asks, is this prep for something specific here in Harrisburg? For everything. For everything. I don't think there's anything on the calendar in the next few weeks. There's a direct action June 6th. So this Friday in Montgomery County here in southeastern PA, it's faith leaders and March on Harrisburg joining together action around money and politics issues, corruption issues. If you want to jump into that one, let me know in the chat. It's in Montgomery County this Friday, midday. I think it starts at 11. Jail support media spokesperson, excellent. Peacekeepers chant singer, excellent.
Audio now on mute.
I'd want to do media spokesperson.
Media spokesperson, excellent. Right, so for all of these roles, there's a space for everybody. There's a space for everybody in an action, and different trainings, required for different roles. But yeah, th those are the roles. Any other reflections or any other
Melanie told
thoughts?
everyone planning and art.
Yeah, Melanie wrote planning an art build, doing some art. I'm just going to mute people. We just have some background noise coming through. Yeah,
All the audio
Sorry, that was my speech software. I use JAWS for Windows on my
from Czech.
computer, guys, you know.
all good, all good.
Sorry.
So yeah, so these are roles. So we've talked through a lot today. We've talked through defining an action narrative, why you're doing something, who or what you are encountering, where and when to encounter them, what are you going to do, and different options around that, and what an arrestable action, and specifically a point of decision action in the Pennsylvania state capitol in Harrisburg looks like. We use that as our example. Of course, actions happen anywhere and everywhere, but it was helpful to kind of zoom in on an example. How are people feeling? Any other thoughts or questions here? We're going to start closing out soon. There's no substitute for experience. You can learn about it in a classroom for years and years and years, but getting out there and doing it is really the best way to learn. You will have many opportunities within the Pennsylvania Poor People's Campaign and our different member organizations to take part in actions like this. Make sure that you're connected and plugged in, so that you can jump into actions as they arise, and jump into trainings and develop skills. Uh, and also, we want you to be involved, not just for an action, of course, right? Um, Everything. Action is a couple of days out of the year. There's every other day in the year too, and then that's when the work really happens as well. So we want you to get involved in one of our member organizations, or in the campaign directly. If you're curious on how to do that, if you aren't already plugged in, then definitely send us an email, or put your email in the chat, or just let us know, and we'll make sure to bump you up to the top of the list, and get connected there. Aaron, that question in the chat is way beyond my expertise there. I would ask a bail fund that exists, how they did it. I would just call up a bail fund directly, and ask them. But I'm grateful that they do exist, and it's always a good thing to do. Let's keep going here to the next slide. Thank you for coming. Also, did anybody notice the typo in our banner? Ah, general assistance. Spelling is tough sometimes, and we do the best we can. We keep moving forward. Excellent, excellent. And then let's go to the next slide here. This is the real announcement here on the next slide, is just the course outline. We're going to be coming back together next week, Monday, June 9th at 6:30 p.m. It'll be the third and final class of this three-part course. And we're going to be we're going to plan an action together. We're going to go through what we've learned in these first two sessions, put it into practice, and have some creative fun with thinking through what an action can look like, and talking it through, and working on it together. So let your creativity run wild this week. Write down any ideas you have, any thoughts you have, and we're going to have a fun time next week, and plan an action together. Any other closing thoughts? Make sure you're organized. Make sure you're plugged in. And yeah. Thank you all. Let's stop the recording.